Conversation with an Alien in Tai Chi, Book 2, Chapter 17. I hear your challenge. I hear it. Please tell me more now about life on this planet on a grander scale. Tell me how nation can get along with the nation so there will be wars no more. There will always be disagreements between nations, for disagreement is merely a sign, and a healthy one, of individuality. Violent resolution of disagreements, however, is a sign of extraordinary immaturity. Say that to Russia. There is no reason in the world why violent resolution cannot be avoided, given the willingness of nations to avoid it. One would think that the massive toll and death and destroyed lives would be enough to produce such willingness. But among primitive cultures and infantile people, immature people, such as yours, that's not so. As long as you think you can win an argument, you will have it. That's me. As long as you think you can win a war, you will fight it. What's the answer to all this? I do not have an answer. I only have, I know, an observation. Yes, I observe now that I observed before. What I observed before. A short-term answer could be to establish what some have called a one-world government, with a world court to settle disputes, one whose verdicts may not be ignored, as happens with the present world court, and a world peacekeeping force to guarantee that no one nation, no matter how powerful or how influential, can ever gain aggressive upon another. And they are still doing it. Yet understand that there may still be violence upon the earth. The peacekeeping force may have to use violence to get someone to stop doing so. As I noted in Book 1, failure to stop a despot empowers a despot. Sometimes the only way to avoid a war is to have a war. Sometimes you have to do what you don't want to do in order to ensure that you won't have to keep on doing it. That's correct. Very, very correct. Because the cowards won't stop until someone stops them. This apparent contradiction is part of the divine dichotomy, which says that sometimes the only way to ultimately be a thing, in this case peaceful, may be at forced to not be it. In other words, often the only way to know yourself as that which you are is to experience yourself as that which you are not. It is observable truth that the power in your word can no longer rest disproportionately with any individual nation, but must rest in the hands of the total group of nations existing on this planet. Only this way can the world finally be at peace. Rest in the secure knowledge that no despot, no matter how big or powerful his individual nation, can or will ever again infringe upon the territories of another nation. No threaten have freedoms. No longer need the smallest nation depend upon the goodwill of the largest nations, often having to bargain away their own resources and offer their prime lands for foreign military bases in order to earn it. Under this new system, the security of the smallest nations will be guaranteed not by those back they scratch, but by who is backing them. All 160 nations would rise up should one nation be invaded. All 160 nations would say no should one nation be violated or threatened in any way. Just like the motto, one for all and all for one. Similarly, nations would no longer be threatened economically, blackmailed into certain courses of action by their bigger trade partners, required to meet certain guidelines in order to receive foreign aid, or mandated to perform in certain ways in order to qualify here he put quality, to qualify for simple humanitarian assistance. Yet there are those among you who would argue that such a system of global governance would erode the independence and the greatness of individual nations. The truth is, it would increase it. And that is precisely what the largest nations, whose independence is assured by power, not by law or justice, are afraid of. For them, no longer would only the largest nations always get its way automatically, but the considerations of all nations would have to be heard equally. And no longer would the largest nations be able to control and hold the mass of the world's resources, but would be required to share them more equally, render them accessible more readily, provide the benefits more uniformly to all the world's people. A worldwide government would level the playing field in this idea, while driving to the core of the debate regarding basic human dignity is anathema to the world's haves, who want the have-nots to go seek their own fortunes, ignoring of course the fact that the haves control all that others would seek. Well, I hope it will work out and that is not be taken advantage of. Imagine a bigger nation or whatever, let's say more richer nation have to support a poorer nation regardless of their size, and then these people or the government there would just exploit and use corruption to keep the funds for themselves instead of distribute among their people, their poor people. Okay, and not for to feed them, but to help them to feed themselves. How? Creating more jobs, create opportunity, open up small businesses for these people, help them to open up small businesses, and when they do well, give back to society to help the others who are below yet. And then, first of all, close the gap of natality and mortality. Don't allow more to come up to this to be born rather than die. You understand? So as to close the gap between one generation and another. So what I mean is, don't allow more people to come in, more babies, whatever, before that poor who is below the ladder of economics, social economics, is still in need. That poor need force help themselves to climb up, and there are people supposed to be the one to help them and not expect the other nation to do that for them. Otherwise they will be rendered like a parasite nation. Do you understand? Just want to take and not give. That's how some of them do. They are poor, but they don't care. Most of them don't care about another. When they have, they will absorb it and take it only for themselves. They won't care for their own people, at least so their governments. That's why they are poor the way they are. They understand how it works, how it functions. Like this is all about psychology, DNA, whatever you want to call it. Okay? So, yeah, these rich nations, I agree that they should help, and they have been helping them. But that's much you can do. It's just like there's this proverb which from the Chinese which says, give men bread or fish and they will eat just one time. Help men to fish or bake their own bread and they will eat their entire life. And that's true. Create more jobs and give opportunity to these people to go out there. Those who can, of course, not the disabled, not the elderly, not the children, not the sick, but those who are able-bodied, who are still young, and can participate and can go out there to make it happen. Do it and help your people. That's how I think. And not give like this in a tray, and then people do nothing to help themselves. Just like my mother said, just wait there, open up the hands to the sky and wait to come out from the heaven. No, it's not like that. You need to make it happen. That's the three tools which you yourself have taught human. The three tools, which is a thought, a word, and an action. These three tools that you yourself, you Luciferians, yourself told us. Thought, word, and actions make it happen. We don't need anything else to make our lives be realized. And that's true. I agree. So, a worldwide government would level the playing field, and this idea, while driving to the core of the debate regarding basic human dignity, is anathema to the world's haves who want to have. So I already have covered that. So yet it feels as though we are talking about retribution of wealth here. How can we maintain the incentive of those who do want more and are willing to work for it if they know they must share with those who do not care to work that hard? Just like my thought, there is people who are very so bold, so thick-skinned that they like to take advantage of others. They are like parasites. They do nothing to help themselves and much less others. Force is not merely a question of those who want to work hard and those who don't. That is a simplistic way to cast the argument usually constructed in that way by the haves. It's more often a question of opportunity than willingness. So the real job and the first job in restructuring the social order is to make sure each person and each nation has equal opportunity. That can never happen so long as those who currently possess and control the mass of the world's wealth and resources hold it tightly to their control. Yes, I mentioned Mexico, and without wanting to get into nation bashing, I think this country provides an excellent example of that. A handful of rich and powerful families control the wealth and resources of that entire nation, and have for 40 years. Elections in this so-called Western democracy are a farce because the same families have controlled the same political party for decades, assuring virtually no serious opposition. Result? The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Correction, because it's not just a problem with the Western countries, but also with the Asian. Some have been in power for decades. Okay? So let's not be discriminative here and take sides. I don't like that. Just like let's be fair, not square, fair and just. If wages should jump from 175 to a whopping 3.15 an hour, the rich point to how much they have done for the poor in providing jobs and opportunity for economic advancement. Yet the only ones making ultimate advices are the rich, the industrialists, and the business owners who sell their commodities on the national and world market at huge profits, given the low cost of their labor. No wonder they ship to China, because China make affordable things but for foreigners, because their own domestic product is very very expensive for the local people. They sell cheaper, they produce more, sell cheaper for the mass, the foreigner mass, whereas their own people cannot afford their own goods. America's rich know this is true, which is why many of America's rich and powerful are rebuilding their plants and factories in Mexico. This is a very old subject. In other foreign countries where slave labor wages are considered a grand opportunity for the peasants. Meanwhile, these workers toil in unhealthy and wholly unsafe conditions, but the local government, controlled by the same few reaping the profits from these ventures, imposes few regulations, health and safety standards, and environmental protections are virtually non-existent in the workplace. The people are not being cared for, nor is the earth on which they are being asked to live in the paper shacks next to streams in which they do their laundry and into which they sometimes defecate. That's true. In the 80s up to 90s was like that. It's kind of condition for the workers, at least for foreigner workers in some nations, developing nations. For indoor plumbing is also often not one of their dignities, and still is in some places now in the East. Come out on the newspaper now, the uprise surge of worker protests in the Middle East just today. For indoor plumbing is also often not one of their dignities. What is created by such crass disregard for the masses is a population which cannot afford the very products it is manufacturing. But the rich factory owners don't care. They can ship their goods to other nations where there are people who can, those who are developed countries, they can afford, but their own people cannot. Yet I believe that sooner or later this spiral will turn in upon itself with devastating consequences, not just in Mexico but wherever humans are exploited. Revolutions and civil war are inevitable, as are wars between nations, so long as the haves continue seeking to exploit the have-nots under the guise of providing opportunity. Hold on to the wealth and the resources has become so institutionalized that it almost now appears acceptable even to some fair-minded people who see it as simply open market economics. And they have another say is the meritocracy, only for those who, the chosen one who deserves it. Ridiculous. This is what the powerful fear. Yet only the power held by the world's wealthy individuals and nations makes that illusion of fairness possible. The truth is, it's not fair to the largest percentage of the world's people and nations, who are held down from even attempting to achieve what the powerful have achieved. So yet only the power held by the world's wealth individuals and nations makes that illusion of fairness possible. The truth is, it's not fair to the largest percentage of the world's people and nations who are held down from even attempting to achieve what the powerful have achieved. The system of governance described here would drastically shift the balance of power away from the resource rich to the resource poor, forcing the resources themselves to be fully shared. This is what the powerful fear. Yes, so the short-term solution to the world's format may be a new social structure, a new worldwide government. There have been those leaders among you who have been insightful enough and brave enough to propose the beginning of such a new world order. Your George Bush, whom whose story will judge to be a man of far greater wisdom, vision, compassion, and courage than contemporary society was willing or able to acknowledge, when such a leader. So when Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev and the first communist head of state ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize, and a man who proposed enormous political changes, visually ending what you called the Cold War. And so once your President Carter, who brought you your Mr. Begin and Mr. Sadar to come to agreements no one else ever had dreamed of, and who long after his presidency pulled the world back from violent confrontation time and time again to the simple assertion of a simple truth. No one's point of view is less worthy of being heard than another's. No one human being has less dignity than another, correct? It is interesting that these courageous leaders, each of whom brought the world from the brink of war in their own time, and each of whom espoused and proposed massive movements away from the prevailing political structure, each served only one term, removed from office as they were by the very people they were seeking to elevate. Just like Brazilian ex-president Lula, Luiz Inácio. He was thrown in jail after he finished his mandate. He was thrown in jail and was recently released, and now he won again the election. However, people has been divided over there because of political differences and political parties. The right wings is not happy in fact, and their ex-president is being tried for corruption. I don't know, I'm not sure, because all this shenanigans I don't want to get involved. I believe that all this game, is not correct, not fair, it's not right. I don't know what the person, they blame the person, this is a game, they say the person is wrong, they are guilty of some crime, and then just to throw them in jail. Past 5 years they are afraid, and then they find out that the guy was innocent. See, and this ex-president, he want to fight for the have-nots. He want to give more opportunity to the poor people, but the middle class is not happy because it is going to pinch their purse. It will pinch in their pocket. It will go and hurt their pocket because they have to pay more for it, more taxes, and they are not happy. So there must be I don't know, a kind of diplomacy that both parties have to agree and come to an understanding, and where everybody needs to win, whether it's a middle class or the poor or the lower class or the I mean, everybody needs dignity, needs fair game, and need understanding regardless of their social status or class. So let's continue. And each of whom espoused and proposed massive movements away from the prevailing political structure. Each served only one term, removed from office, since they were by the very people they were seeking to elevate. Incredibly popular worldwide, they were soundly rejected at home. It's said that a man is without honor in his own home. Is there where there is your enemies in your own country. They'll do anything to bring you down. It's said in the case of this man, it is because their vision was miles ahead of the people who could see only limited parochial concerns and imagined nothing but loosely proceeding from these larger visions. So too has every leader who has dared to step out and call for the end of oppression by the powerful being discouraged and defied. Thus it will always be until a long-term solution, which is not a political one, it's a spiritual one, is put into place. That long-term solution, and the only real one, is a new oneness and a new consciousness, and oneness of oneness and a consciousness of love and unity consciousness, and also a shift in paradigm. The incentive to succeed, to make the most of one's life, should not be economic or materialistic reward. It is misplaced there. This misplaced priority is what has created all of the problems we have discussed here. When the incentive for greatness is not economic, when economic security and basic materialistic needs are guaranteed to all, then incentive will not disappear, but be of a different sort, increasing in strength and determination, producing true greatness, not the kind of transient greatness which present incentives produce. But why isn't living a better life, create a better life for our children, a good incentive? Why isn't? Living a better life is a proper incentive. Creating a better life for your children is a good incentive. But the question is, what makes for a better life? How do you define better? How do you define life? For some, it's about material things, the 3 C's, car, condominium, and credit card. And I have a life of luxury, be very highly educated. That's how they define success. For others, not so. For others, success is to strive to be strong and courageous even in your darkest moment in life. It's at least so there when you pass with true colors through your darkest hours and day without without become mad or do something stupid. Then you truly can say that you are a warrior, that you are a winner. But some define success and they have more money and all the material stuff. And sadly, some of those people are not even young. They are the oldest ones. If you define better as bigger, better, more money, power, sex, and stuff, houses, car, clothes, CD collections, whatever, and even travel. And if you define life as the period elapsing between birth and death, in this your present existence, then you are doing nothing to get out of the trap that has created your planet's predicament. Yet, if you define better as a larger experience, a great expression of your grandest state of being, and life as an internal, ongoing, never-ending process of being, you may yet find your way. A better life is not created by the accumulation of things. Most of you know this. All of you say you understand it. Yet your lives and the decisions you make, which drive your lives, have as much to do with things as anything else, and usually more. You strive for things, you work for things, and when you get some of the things you want, you never let them go. Yeah, we hoard. Some people don't share even if their neighbors next door are poor and are starving. Even if they know it, they don't care. The incentive of most of humankind is to achieve, acquire, or obtain things. Those who do not care about things let them go easily. Yeah, by give it away. What you want, give it away. If you have to dress, give some for the poor. If you can have the poor, there's you. Fortunately, some doesn't have this opportunity because all the people around you are arrogant and they are not very poor. Because your present incentive for greatness has to do with accumulation of all the world has to offer. All of the world is in various stages of struggle. Enormous portions of the population are still struggling for simple physical survival. Each day is filled with anxious moments, desperate measures. The mind is concerned with basic vital questions. Will there be enough food? Is shelter available? Will be warming? Enormous numbers of people are still concerned with these matters. And so many disoccupied houses and so many homeless. How to understand this? And also yet so many junkies on the road. Like zombies, live on drugs, walking like a zombie, slumped on the streets on the road. That's a very sickening sight that make you want to cry of desperation. Will be there enough? Is shelter available? Will be warm? Enormous number of people are still concerned with these matters daily. Thousands dies each month for lack of food alone. Yeah, starvation. Unfortunately, that's so true. and even people who doesn't deserve it, while those who are greedy are having this, are becoming fat and fat. Smaller numbers of people are able to reasonably rely on the basics of survival appearing in their lives, but struggle to provide something more, a modicum of security, a modest but decent home, a better tomorrow. They work hard, they fret about how and whether they will ever get ahead. The mind is concerned for a gente worrisome questions. Lucky for Americans, they are providing the homeless with some shelter. Those kind of assembling houses from China, which is a good idea to give the homeless some roof over their heads. By far, the smallest number of people have all they could ever ask for. Indeed, everything the other two groups are asking for. But, interestingly, many in this last group are still asking for more. The greedy one have a car, want some more. Have clothes, want some more. Have houses, want some more. Travel many times a year. Their minds are pay hefty sums to go watch football, no, watch this sport, while thousands more starve to death each year. Their minds are for carnival. They say for carnival. What is absurd is that even the poor save up for carnival. They don't have money for food, but they have money for carnival and for alcohol. How to understand? Their minds are concerned to holding on to all that they have acquired and increasing their holdings. Now, in addition to these three groups, there is a fourth. It's the smallest group of all. In fact, it's a tiny fraction. This group has detached itself from the need for material things. It's concerned with spiritual truth, spiritual reality, and spiritual experience. Correct. I want to make part of this group, and I'm almost there. The people in this group, when don't tell me, oh, for being spiritual you need to be sane and I get abused. No, I'm not like that. I'm not a pushover. Sorry to disappoint you, but I mean another way, live it in the basic way, be a minimalist. The people in this group see life as a spiritual encounter, a journey of the soul. That's me. They respond to all human events within that context. They hold all human experience within that paradigm. Most Virgo try their best to be of service to humankind. Neil Donald is a Virgo. Mother Teresa was one. Their struggle has to do with the search for God, the fulfillment of self, the expression of truth. As they evolve, this struggle becomes not a struggle at all, but a process. Correct, very correct. We don't care if tomorrow we die. We don't care if we don't have enough. We eat today, tomorrow we don't eat. We eat once a day, drink once a day, sleep just few hours, that's okay. Self-definition, as they evolve, this struggle becomes not a struggle at all, but a process. It's a process of self-definition, not self-discovery, of growth, not learning, of being, not doing. Correct. The reason for seeking, striving, searching, stretching, and succeeding becomes completely different. The reason for doing anything is changed. and with it the doer is likewise changed. The reason becomes the process, and the doer becomes a beer. Whereas before, the reason for reaching, for striving, for working hard all of one's life was to provide worldly things. Now the reason is to experience heavenly things. Whereas before, the concerns were largely the concerns of the body, now the concerns are largely the concerns of the soul. The reason for seeking, striving, searching, stressing, and succeeding becomes completely different. The reason for doing anything is changed, and with it, the doer is likewise changed. The reason becomes the process, and the doer becomes a beer. Whereas before, the reason for teaching, for striving, for working hard, all of one's life was to provide worldly things, now the reason is to experience heavenly things. Whereas before, the concerns were largely the concerns of the body, now the concerns are largely the concerns of the soul. Everything has moved, everything has shifted, the purpose of life has changed, and so has life itself. The incentive for greatness has shifted, and with it the need for converting, acquiring, protecting, and increasing worldly possessions has disappeared. Greatness will no longer be measured by how much one has accumulated and how educated one is. The worldly resources will rightly be seen as belonging to all the world's people, and a world blessed with sufficient abundance to meet the basic needs of all. The basic needs of all will be met. Everyone will want it their way. There will no longer be a need to subject anyone to an involuntary tax. You will all volunteer to send 10% of your harvest and your abundance to programs supporting those whose harvest is less. It will no longer be possible for thousands to stand by watching thousands of others starve, not for lack of food, but for lack of sufficient human will to create a simple political mechanism by which people can get the food. This is what they fear. They don't want this to happen. Really, people are resisting all this movement. But some of them are doing it now, and they are doing it for religion. They gradually do it for religion. The religion take their, how to say, there's a name. I forgot in English. They are paying that for the religion every month. They pay, I don't know, $5. Each person, just imagine times 1 million people. How much do they earn if it's $5 per month each person? It will be 5 million, but the government will take some of these taxes for themselves. So everyone will want it their way. There will no longer be a need to subject anyone to an involuntary tax. You will all volunteer to send 10% of your harvest and your abundance to programs supporting Jews whose harvest is less. Yeah, but this program must be always have a watchdog, because without a watchful eyes, they can cheat and corrupt the system. It will no longer be possible for thousands to stand by watching thousands of others starve. not for lack of food, but for lack of sufficient human will to create a simple political mechanism by which people can get the food. But please don't say that to an Aquarian, don't say that to a Cancerian, don't say that to some Libra, most of the Libra. Sagittarius, okay, maybe they will help. Sagittarius, Gemini, okay, they will help. Virgo, without question, they will help willingly and happily. Um, Capricornian, no, they will resist. Capricornian, um, Pisces too, gonna be a very hard job to get them to give, but the woman, the Pisces woman, because they are very soft hearted, emotional, they will give. Aries, I think gonna have some, but some Aries people are okay. They will, yeah, Aries will give. Gemini, yeah, some will give, some will hold, because not all Geminis are generous. Cancer is a no, 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 no. Cancer very stingy and miser. Um, Leo, 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 Leo. Yeah, some will give. Some Leo will give, but the hearted one won't, because they can be very cruel and hardy-hearted. So they will say no. They don't care a heck about the poor. In fact, Leos despise poor. But they can be generous, but the people who are close to them and the immediate family or work people, but for a stranger, they are not very good. The Leos, no, they are not very good. Virgos, okay, Virgos have a heart. They have a lot of empathy for the poor, and their lives dedicated for the service of humankind. That's why most Virgo, a lot of them suffer a lot, suffer like hell in life. Scorpio, yeah, Scorpio will give. No matter what, Scorpio, when it comes to this matter of giving, yeah, Scorpio can look mean outside, but they have a softy side in them when it comes to give to the poor. In fact, the government, the Lula is Scorpio. The new Brazilian president is a Scorpio man. So some will give, some would not like to give. Aquarian, totally no. Don't think that Aquarian is so humanitarian. That's bull crap. They, not all of them, but some will, some not. But some will. So, 10% of your harvest in your abundance to programs supporting juicy harvest is less. So everyone will want it that way. There will be no longer be a need to subject anyone to involuntary tax. You will all volunteer to send 10% of your harvest and your abundance to programs supporting juicy harvest is less. It will no longer be possible for thousands to stand by watching thousands of others starve. Not for lack of food, but for lack of sufficient human will to create a simple political mechanism by which people can get the food. Such moral obscenities now commonplace among your primitive society will be erased forever the day you change your incentive for greatness and your definition of it. This is what Lula da Silva want to do in Brazil. And there's a lot of power, resistant power, opposition power to throw his plan, to do away with his plan. So, for greatness and your definition of it, your new incentive to become what I created you to be, the physical picturing of deity itself. When you choose to be who you really are, God made manifest, you will never again act in an ungodly manner. No longer will you have to display bumper stickers which read, God saving me, from your followers. Correct. So this girl here that I show is a reptilian girl. She's from she is from Orion. She's the daughters of the queen, the representative of the queen. She's a representative of the queen. Actually, let children starve to death right now in front of you. You actually kill people because they disagree with you. You are primitive. And we think we are so advised, the delusioned one. The first mark of a primitive society is that it thinks itself advised. The first mark of a primitive consciousness is that it thinks itself enlightened. So let's summarize it. The way we'll get to the first step on the ladder, where these two fundamental guarantees are accorded to everyone, is through two shifts, two changes, one in your political paradigm, one in your spiritual. The movement to a unified world government would include a greatly empowered world court to resolve international disputes and a peacekeeping force to give power to the laws by which you choose to govern yourselves. The world government would include a Congress of Nations, two representatives from every nation on earth, and a People's Assembly with representation in direct proportion to a nation's population. Exactly the way the US government set up, with two houses, one provide proportional representation and one provide equal voice to all of the states. Yes, your US Constitution was God inspired. The same balance of powers should be built in to the new world constitution. There would be likewise an executive branch, legislative branch, and a judicial branch. Each nation will keep its internal peacekeeping policy, but all national armies would be disbanded exactly as each of your individual states disbanded the armies and navies in favor of a federal peacekeeping force serving the entire groups of states you now call a nation. Nations would reserve the right to form and call up their own militia on a moment's notice, just as your states each have the constitutional right to keep and activate a state militia. And just as your states do now, each of the 160 nations states and the Union of Nations would have the right to secede from the Union based upon a vote of the people. Though why it would want to do so is beyond me, given that its people would be more secure and more abundant than ever before. And once more, for those of us who are slow, such as a unified world federation would produce. First, an end to wars between nations and the settling of disputes by killing. Second, an end to abject poverty, death by starvation, and mass exploitation of people and resources by those of power. Third, an end to the systematic environmental destruction of the earth. Fourth, an escape from the endless struggle for bigger, better, more. 50. An opportunity truly equal for all people to rise to the highest expression of self. 6. An end to all limitations and discriminations holding people back, whether in housing, in the workplace, or in the political system, or in personal sexual relationships. Correct. That's good. Good implementation. So let's revise. Force an end to wars between nations and the settling of disputes by killing. Second, we will have an end to abject poverty, death by starvation, and mass exploitation of people and resources by those of power. Third, an end to the systematic environmental destruction of the earth. Fourth, an escape from the endless struggle for bigger, better, more. 50. An opportunity truly equal for all people to rise to the highest expression of self. And finally, an end to all limitations and discrimination holding people back, whether in housing, in the workplace, or in the political system, or in personal relationships. Personal sexual relationship. Maybe she's talking about, homosexuality. Would your new world order require retribution of wealth? It would require nothing. It would produce voluntarily and quite automatically a redistribution of resources. I think this is coming next year. Prepare yourselves. It's going to be implemented next year. Energy number 7. All people would be offered a proper education, for instance. All people would be offered the open opportunity to use their education in the workplace to follow careers which bring them joy. All people, joy, and not struggle. Joy. Because life is about joy or not struggle. All people would be guaranteed access to health care whenever and however needed. Like in Brazil, it's free, even for foreigner. It's a shame that outside Brazil is not outside, Asia, or Africa, or Middle East and North America. But in Brazil, it's free. The rest of South America, not so. Colombia, Bolivia, is not. So all people will be guaranteed access to health care wherever, whenever, and however needed. All people will be guaranteed they won't starve to death or have to live without sufficient clothing or adequate shelter. All people would be granted the basic dignities of life so that survival would never again be the issue. So that simple comforts and basic dignities were provided to all human beings. Amen. 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 Repetitions from Orion. Even if they did nothing to earn it, your thought that these things need to be earned is the basis for your thoughts that you have to earn your way to heaven. Yet you cannot earn your way into God's good graces, and you do not have to, because you are already there. This is something you cannot accept because it is something you cannot give. Correct. You couldn't have put it better. When you learn to give unconditionally, which is to say love unconditionally, it's like do good, don't look at who. Then will you learn to receive unconditionally. This life was created as a vehicle through which you might be allowed to experience that. Try to wrap yourself around this thought. People have a right to basic survival, even if they do nothing, even if they contribute nothing. Survival with dignity is one of the basic rights of life. I have given you enough resources to be able to guarantee that to everyone. All you have to do is share. Okay. Your thought that these things need to be earned is the basis for your thought that you have to earn your way to heaven. Yet you cannot earn your way into God's good graces. And you do not have to, because you are already there. There is something you cannot accept because it is something you cannot give. When you learn to give unconditionally, which is to say love unconditionally, love unconditionally. This life was created as a vehicle through which you might be allowed to experience that. There will, when you to say, wish to say love unconditionally, then you will learn to receive unconditionally. This life was created as a vehicle through which you might be allowed to experience that. Try to wrap yourself around this thought. People have a right to basic survival, even if they do nothing, even if they contribute nothing. It's because we are used with conditional give and take kind of system. Survival with dignity is one of the basic rights of life. I have given you enough resources to be able to guarantee that to everyone. All you have to do is to share. But then what would stop people from simply wasting their lives lollygagging around collecting benefits? Okay. First of all, it's not yours to judge what is a life wasted. Is a life wasted if a person does nothing but lie around thinking of poetry for 70 years, then comes up for single sonnet which opens a door of understanding and insight for thousands of people? Is it a life wasted if a person lies, cheats, schemes, damages, manipulates, and hurts others all his life, but then remembers something of his true nature as a result of it? Remembers, perhaps, something he has been spending lifetimes trying to remember, and thus he evolves at last to the next level. Is that life wasted? No, it's not, because at least he repent. Until he repented, then it's wasted. Once he repents, it's not wasted. It's not for you to judge the journey of another soul. It's for you to decide who you are, not who another has been or has failed to be. So you ask, what would stop people from simply wasting their lives lollygagging around, collecting benefits? And the answer is nothing. But do you really think this would work? You don't think those who are contributing wouldn't begin to resent those who are not? It's correct. That's what they do. The middle class, the right wings, etc. Yes, they would, if they are not enlightened. Yet enlightened ones would look upon their non-contributors with great compassion, not resentment. That's for religion, for the Christian religion to do. They often do this, they do a lot of charity. But I believe that men who think that a man has to fish and not collect fishes, then gonna be hard for them to give away. Very hard. They will resent, and there will be even civil war in those countries. Mark my word. Yes, they would if they are not enlightened. Compassion? Yes, because the contributors would realize that non-contributors are missing the greatest opportunity and the grandest glory, the opportunity to create and the glory of experiencing the highest idea of who they really are. Yeah, it's very humiliating to always expect on other people. Ugh. to always wait on others. It's very humiliating. For that soul itself, it is already a penalty. So, and the contributors would know that this was punishment enough for their laziness, if indeed the punishment were required, which is not. Yeah, okay. But wouldn't those who are really contributing be angry at having the fruits of their labor taken from them and given to the lazy ones? Okay, good question. We must be arbitrary and see both sides of the coin and this subject. But if possible, whenever possible, let's help people without the one nothing in return, or think about retribution or why do other people don't work. You are not listening. All would be given minimal survival portions. Those who have more would be given an opportunity to contribute 10% of their earnings in order to make this possible. As to how income would be decided, the open marketplace would determine the value of one's contribution, just as it does today in your country. There are some government who take how many percent? 25% of our income. Never mind if the income is 500, 300, they will take 25%. So what's 10% given to the poor, to the homeless? Nothing. It's how income would be decided. The open marketplace would determine the value of one's contribution, just as it does today in your country. But then we would still have the rich and the poor just as we do today. That's not inequality, but it is equal opportunity. For everyone would have the opportunity to live a basic existence without the worries of survival. And everyone would be given an equal opportunity to acquire knowledge, develop skills, and use his or her natural talents in the joy place. Correct. I agree with that. And all for it. The joy place, yeah, arts. That's what the workplace will then be called. But won't there still be envy? Envy, yes. Jealousy, no. Envy is a natural emotion, urging you to strive to be more. It's the 2-year-old child yearning and urging herself to reach that doorknob which her big brother can reach. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with envy. It's a motivator. It's a pure desire. It gives birth to greatness. Jealousy, on the other hand, is a fear-driven emotion, making one willing for the other to have less. It's an emotion often based in bitterness. It proceeds from anger and leads to anger, and it kills. Jealousy can kill. Anyone who's been in a jealous triangle knows that. Jealousy kills. Envy gives birth. Those who are envious will be given every opportunity to succeed in their own way. No one will be held back economically, politically, socially, not by reason of race, gender, or sexual orientation, not by reason of birth, class, status, or age, not for any reason at all. Discrimination for any reason will simply no longer be tolerated. And yes, there may still be the rich and the poor, but there will be no longer be the starving and the destitute. You see, the incentive won't be taken out of life, merely the desperation. But what will guarantee that we will have enough contributors to carry the non-contributors? The greatness of the human spirit. Or, contrary to apparent dire belief, the average person will not be satisfied with subsistence levels and nothing more. In addition, the whole incentive for greatness will change when the second paradigm shift, the spiritual shift, takes place. What would cause such a shift? It hasn't occurred yet in the 2000 year history. Try 2 billion year history of the planet. Why should it occur now? Because if the shift away from material survival with the elimination of the need to succeed mildly in order to acquire a modicum of security, there will be no other reason to achieve, to stand out, to become magnificent, save the experience of magnificency itself. And that will be sufficient motivation. The human spirit rises, it does not fall on the face of true opportunity. The soul seeks a higher experience of itself, not a lower. In one who has experienced true magnificency, the human spirit rises, it does not fall in the face of true opportunity. The soul seeks a higher experience of itself, not a lower. In one who has experienced true magnificency, if only for a moment it knows this. How about power? In this special reordering, there would still be those with inordinate wealth and power. Financial earnings will be limited. This sounds like communism to me, communism. Oh boy, here we go. You want to explain how that would work before I explain why it won't? Yes, just as there would be lower limits on income, so would there be upper limits. First, nearly everyone will teach 10% of their income to the world government. This is the voluntary 10% deduction I mentioned before. Oh, we already pay in some part of the East, we are paid 25% of our income to the government. So 10% is nothing, but I think before they say 10%, now they have increased for 25. No. Still that time they still took 25%. Yes, the old equal taxes proposal. In your present society at this present time, it would have to take the form of a tax because you are not sufficiently enlightened to see that voluntary deduction for the general good of all is in your best interest. Yet, when the shift in consciousness I have been describing occurs, such an open, caring, freely offered deduction from your harvest will be seen by you as obviously appropriate. I have to tell you something. Do you mind if I interrupt you here to tell you something? No, go right ahead. This conversation is seeming very strange to me. I never thought I'd have a conversation with God in which God would start recommending political courses of action. I mean, really, how do I convince people that God is for the flat tax? Exactly. Which is it? Well, I see you keep insisting on it as a tax, but I understand that because the concept of simply offering to share 10% of your abundance seems so foreign to you. Nevertheless, why do you find it difficult to believe? I would have an idea about this. I thought God was non-judgmental, had no opinion, didn't care about such things. And if there were a true God, it wouldn't, but there are aliens, so what to expect? They are just like us. Wait, let me get this straight. In our last conversation, which you called Book 1, I answered all sorts of questions. Questions about what makes relationships work, questions about right livelihood, questions about diet even. How does that differ from this? I don't know, it just seems different. I mean, do you really have a political point of view? Are you a card carrying Republican? What a truth to come out of this book. God is a Republican. But there is some system of religion that follows uh, the status quo. They don't separate religion with politics. It's all imbued and closer together, isn't it? Uh, you'd rather I be a Democrat? Good God. Cute. No, I'd rather you be a political. You be apolitical, not political, but apolitical. I am apolitical. I have no political point of view whatsoever. Sort of like Bill Clinton. Hey, good. Now you are being cute. I like humor, don't you? I guess I didn't expect God to be humorous or political. Or anything human, huh? Okay, let me place this book and book one for that matter into context for you once again. I have no preference in the matter of how you conduct your life. My only desire is that you experience yourself fully as a creative being so that you might know who you really are. Good, I understand that. So far, so good. Every question I have answered here, and every inquiry to which I responded in book one has been heard and responded to within the context of what you as a creative being say you are attempting to be and do. For instance, in book one you asked me many questions about how you could finally make relationships work. Do you remember? Yes, of course. Did you find my answers so problematic? Did you find it difficult to believe that I would have a point of view on this? I never thought about it, I just read the answers. Yet, you see, I was placing my answers within the context of your questions. That is, given that you decide to be or do so and so, what is a way to go about that? And I showed you a way. Yes, you did. I'm doing the same thing here. It's just, I don't know, more difficult to believe that God would say these things than it was to believe that God would say those things. I find it more difficult to agree to some of the things said here. Well, because if you are, that's very okay. It is, of course. It's okay to disagree with God. Certainly. What do you think I'm going to do? Squash you like an insect? Oh my God. I hadn't got that far in my thinking, silly. Oh, this book's so funny. Look, the world has been disagreeing with me since this whole thing started. Hardly anyone has been doing it my way since it began. That's true, I guess. You can be sure it's true. Had people been following my instructions, left with you through hundreds of teachers over thousands of years, the world would be a much different place, correct? Maybe correct. So if you wish to disagree with me now, go right ahead. Besides, I could be wrong. What? I said, besides, I could be wrong. Oh my goodness, you are not taking this all as a gospel, are you? That's why you should take things as shouldn't be taking things as special value. You mean I'm not supposed to put any stock in this dialogue? Oops, hold it. I think you have missed a big part of all this. Let's go back to square one. You are making this all up. By saying that, because they know that this is not only here, but even in the astral world, all is a visual world, okay, made of photonics. It's a hologram, so you shouldn't take it so heavily and seriously. Oh well, that's a relief. For a while there I thought I was actually getting some real guidance. The guidance you are getting is to follow your heart, listen to your soul, hear yourself. Even when I present you with an option, an idea, a point of view, you are under no obligation to accept that as your own. If you disagree, then disagree. That's the whole point of this exercise. The idea wants it for you to substitute your dependency on everything and everyone else with a dependency on this book. The idea wants to cause you to think for yourself. And that is who I am right now. I am you thinking. I am you thinking out loud. You mean this material is not come from the highest source? Of course it is, but through him. Of course it is, yet he is the one thing you still cannot believe. You are the highest source, and he is the one thing you still apparently do not grasp. You are creating it all of your life, right here, right now. You are created, not me. You. Oh boy, by say that you can get people into trouble, don't you? Because after all, they will say that the guy's idea, and well, if he could get into trouble, then he would. So, are there some answers, just like what happened to Jesus? So, are there some answers to these purely political questions that you do not like? Then change them. Do it now, before you start hearing them as gospel. Before you start making them real. Before you start calling your last thought about something more important, more valid, more true than your next thought. Remember, it's always your new thought that creates your reality. Always. Now, do you find anything in this political discussion of ours that you want to change? Well, not really. I'm sort of agreeing with you as it happens. I just need to know what to make of all of this. Make of it what you wish. Don't you get it? That's all what you are doing with all of life. Okay, alright, I think I've got it. I would like to continue with this conversation. If you want to see where it is going, fine, then let's do that. I was about to say that in other societies, enlightened societies, the putting aside of a set amount of what one receives, what you call income, to be used for the general good of the society itself, is a rather common practice in the aliens. Under the new system we have been exploring for your society, everyone would earn as much each year as they could, and they would retain what they earn up to a certain limit. What limit? An arbitrary limit, agreed to by everyone. And anything above that limit would be contributed to the world charitable trust in the name of the contributor. So all the world would know its benefactors. What if you go to the wrong places? How would you trust where these funds, all these millions and billions of money will go to? Benefactors would have the option of direct control over the disbursement of 6% of their contribution, provided them the satisfaction of putting most of their money exactly where they want it. The other 40% would be allocated to programs legislated by the World Federation and administered by it. Man, imagine you work like a hell to earn is about 40% of your income and the rest goes for government. So how would it be? Many people choose not to work anymore and the world will stop, finish, fully stop. If people knew that after certain income limit everything would be taken from them, what would be the incentive to keep working? Exactly my thoughts. Nobody would work, you crooks, communists, nobody. Because all will go for your money, your account. Who do you want that? Nobody's an idiot to work for 40%. When about to work just for 40%, what's this, man? And I give the more money to the government than for us. Then what we do? Craps? How about our bills? Everything increasing. If people knew that after certain limit everything would be taken from them, what would be the incentive to keep working? What would cause them not to stop in midstream once they reach the income limit? Exactly. And worse yet, we don't know where this money goes to in actuality. How we are certain that it goes to the right hands, to the needy? Some would. So what? Let them stop. Mandatory work above the income limit. What? Some would. So what? Let them stop. Mandatory work. What? What? You bloody serpent. You want people to mandatory work. This is a concentration camp. It's a prison where people are forced to work, slavery, and still he talk about joy. Still he talk about joy, about this and that, about people working for joy. This is a new world messy, new world disorder, not the order. This is like a concentration camp already. Some would, some what? So what? Let them stop mandatory work above the income limit. With contribution to the world's charitable trust would not be required. The money saved from the elimination of mass production of weapons of wars would be sufficient to supply everyone's basic need. The 10% tithe of all that is earned worldwide on top of those savings would elevate all of society, not just the chosen few, to a new level of dignity and abundance, and the contribution of earnings above the agreed upon limit, would produce such widespread opportunity and satisfaction for everyone that jealousy and social angers would visually disintegrate. Yeah, but still those who are contribute will be the anger and the jealous one. So go back to square one, just change gears, change side. So some would stop working, especially those who saw their life activity as real work. Yet those who saw the activity as absolute joy would never stop. Oh, you talk so joy, huh? Joy for impaled, joy just to support your work, isn't it? Walk, and then laugh like an idiot. What's this? Slavery, man. This is communism, slavery. Not everyone can have a job like that. Untrue, everyone can. Joy at the workplace has nothing to do with function, and everything to do with purpose. As nonsense. Not you who are working. Go and slave yourself, do braçal work, do physical work. 11 hours, 10 hours a day. Go yourself, do that. The mother who wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning to change her baby's diaper understands this perfect. Oh, it's not you. I brought up 5 children and I know how is it. Wake up, uh, um, under eye bags, black eye in the morning like a drunk. 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock to tend to baby. So as to wake up again at 6 in the morning, do those chores, and then cook, and then when we think we can take a rest again, the baby wake up, and this going roll on and on and on and on. You think it's this? There's no joy in that. I never enjoyed. I enjoy when they grown up already. Talky easily as Luciferians. So at the workplace, the mother who wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning to change her baby diaper, not use it, understands this perfectly. She hums and coos to the baby, and for all the world, it doesn't look like what she's doing is in work at all. It is, because not you. Yet, it's her attitude about what she's doing, it's her intention with regard to it. It's her purpose in undertaking this activity, which make the activity a true joy. No, it's not you. Ask the mothers who is having postnatal depression, what is this joy? Go and ask. Go ahead. I have used this example of motherhood before because the love of a mother for her child is as close as you may be able to come to understanding some of the concept of which I'm speaking in this book and this trilogy. There's difference, see, dude. We can love a child but don't need to slave for them. The same thing is slave for somebody else who doesn't want to move his ass to go in a walk. And I know where you want to go. I understand. I'm not going to talk this because it's a very, very controversial argument. But I one day I still gonna tell about it. To who you want to support, I know who you all want to support. The parasite people who doesn't want to help themselves and I blame everybody else for their plight. Okay? You think I don't know? Nobody here is stupid, dude. Many people already are waking up against you aliens as well. Still, what would be the purpose of eliminating limitless earning potential? Exactly. It's not that you are working for nothing, for penuries. And all the facilities goes for government. What's this? Everybody's a fool. Anybody is a fool, a slave. Nobody would want this. Everybody will die, starve, but they will not work for you all. You remove your horse from the rain, okay? Come out from your high pedestal because nobody gonna listen to you all. Come as a God to tell you to call the shot and talk nonsense. You think people didn't wake up? You are wrong. Still, what would be the purpose of eliminating limitless any potential? Wouldn't that rob the human experience of one of its greatest opportunities, one of its most glorious adventures? You would still have the opportunity and the adventure of earning a ridiculous amount of money. The upper limit on retainable income would be very high, more than the average person. The average 10 people would ever need, and the amount of income you could earn would not be limited. Simply the amount you would choose to retain for personal use. The remainder, everything say over 25 million a year, I use a strictly arbitrary figure to make a point, would be spent for programs and services benefiting all humankind. As to the reason, the why of it, the upper retainable income limit would be a reflection of a consciousness shift on the planet and awareness that the highest purpose of life is not the accumulation of the greatest wealth, but the doing of the greatest good. And a corollary awareness that indeed the concentration of wealth, not the sharing of it, is the largest single factor in the creation of the world's most persistent and striking social and political dilemmas. Ask these people to go to work, make for them plantation. Ask them to go plantation work, and I earn some wage like $2,000. Ask them to work at least 80 hours a day, 5 days a week, for about 1,800. It will be good enough. Why don't you make that instead of asking everybody to go to work to give you money? The opportunity to amass wealth, unlimited wealth, is the cornerstone of the capitalistic system, a system of free enterprise and open competition that has produced the greatest society the world has ever known. The problem is, you really believe that. No, I don't, but I have mounted it here on behalf of those who do believe it. Those who do believe it are terribly deluded and see nothing of the current reality on your planet. In the United States, the top 1.5% hold more wealth than the bottom 90%. The net worth of the richest 83,000 people is nearly $1 trillion greater than the poorest 84 million people combined. Oh, so all this so they have worked for it. So they have worked for it. You Americans tend to see the class status as a function of individual effort. Some have made it good, so you assume that anybody can. That's the truth. That view is simplistic and naive. It assumes that everyone has equal opportunity, when in fact, in America, just as in Mexico, the rich and powerful strive and contrive to hold on to their money and their power and to increase it. So you mean that only the rich will be able to contribute this much, then it will be okay. But I'm talking about the men, the laymen there on the street, the one who lives on salary, minimum salary. They will not be able to give you all this much money when they cannot even have for themselves. So what's wrong with that? They do so by systematically eliminating competition, by institutionally minimizing true opportunity, and by collectively controlling the flow and the growth of wealth. This they accomplish through all manner of devices, from unfair labor practices which exploit the masses of the world's poor to good old boy network competitive practices which minimize and all but destroy a newcomer's chances of entering the inner circle of the successful. They then seek to control public policy and governmental programs around the world to further ensure that the masses of people remain regulated, controlled, and subservient. That's correct. I don't believe that the rich do this. Not the largest number of them. There may be a handful of conspirators, I suppose. In most cases, it isn't rich individuals who do it, maybe it's corporate. It is the social systems and institutions they represent. Those systems and institutions were created by the rich and powerful, and it's the rich and powerful who continue to support them. By standing behind such social systems and institutions, individuals can wash their hands of any personal responsibility for their conditions, which oppress the masses while favoring the rich and powerful. For example, Let's go back to healthcare in America. Millions of Americans poor have no access to preventive medical care. One cannot point to any individual doctor and say, "This is your doing. It is your fault that in the richest nation on earth, millions cannot get in to see a doctor unless they are in dire straits in an emergency room." No individual doctor is to blame for that. Yet all doctors benefit the entire medical professions, and every allied industry enjoys unprecedented profits from a delivery system which has institutionalized discrimination against the working poor and the unemployed. And not only America, it's many in Asia, um, Middle East, Africa. Why you say only North America? That's not fair discrimination. And that's just one example of how the system keeps the rich rich and the poor poor. The point is that it is the rich and powerful who support such social structures and staunchly resist any real effort to change them. They stand against any political or economic approach which seeks to provide true opportunity and genuine dignity to all people. Most of the rich and powerful, taken individually, are certainly nice enough people with as much compassion and sympathy as anyone. But mention a concept as threatening to them as yearly income limits, even ridiculously high limits, such as 25 million annually, and they start whining about usurpation of individual rights, erosion of the American way, and a lost incentives. Yeah, okay, understand now. I'm sorry. Earlier I thought that it was talking about the poor people who earn salary have to contribute that much. But now I know it's the rich. I think for the rich is nothing contribute all this. It's nothing. Yet, what about the right of all people to live in minimally decent surroundings, with enough food to keep from starving, enough clothing to stay warm? What about the right of people everywhere to have adequate health care, the right not to have to suffer or die from relatively minor medical complications, which do sweet man overcome with a snap of a finger? Yeah, and there is also some of those who are still complains about the crime rate in the country, robbery, burglary, etc., house break-ins. I mean, they complain about it, but they do nothing to change those conditions. They, if they don't want to be robbed or whatever, then they have to take the sleep. There's no other way. The resources of your planet include the fruits of the labors of the masses of the indescribably poor who are continually and systematically exploited, belong to all the world's people, not just those who are rich and powerful enough to do the exploiting. Okay, I'm sorry, forgive me, you are right. And here is how the exploitation works. Your rich industrialists go into a country or an area where there is no work at all, where the people are destitute, where there is abject poverty, desperate people. The rich set up a factory there, offering those poor people jobs, sometimes 10, 12, and 14 hours a day jobs. Correct again. At substandard, if not to say subhuman wages. Correct. Not enough, mind you, to allow those workers to escape their rat-infested villages, but just enough to let them live their way, as opposed to having no food or shelter at all. Yeah, that's correct. Exploitation, alright. And the long hours of work, 14-hour shift, 12-hour shift, that is killing and mentally killing kind of system. And when they are called on it, these capitalists say, hey, they have got it better than before, don't they? We have improved a lot. Though people are taking the jobs, aren't they? Why? We have brought them opportunity, and we are taking all the risk. Yet, how much risk there and pay people 75 cents an hour, oh my god, to manufacture sneakers which are going to sell for $125 a pair. And that was before, many years ago, over 20 years ago. Is this risk taking or exploitation pure and simple? Such a system of rank obscenity could exist only in a world motivated by greed, where profit margin, not human dignity, is the first consideration. Jews who say that relative to the standard in their society, those peasants are doing wonderfully, are hypocrites of the first order. They would throw a drowning man a rope, but refuse to pull him to shore. Then they would brag that a rope is better than a rock. Correct. Rather than raising the people to true dignity, these heavies give the world's heavy nuts just enough to make them dependent, but not enough to ever make them truly powerful. For people of true economic power have the ability to them impact and not merely be subject to the system. And that's the last thing the creators of the system want. So the conspiracy continues, and for most of the rich and powerful, it is not a conspiracy of actions, but a conspiracy of silence. So go your way, and by all means say nothing about the obscenity of a socio-economic system which rewards a corporate executive with a $70 million bonus for increased sales of a soft drink, while 70 million people can't afford the luxury of drinking the stuff, much less eating enough to stay healthy. And thanks God they cannot afford that unhealthy drink. Don't see the obscenity of it. Call this the world's free market economy, or the WFME, and tell everyone how proud you are of it. Yet it is written, if you do wilt be perfect. Go and sell what you hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven. Correct. But when the young man heard this, he went away, sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Yeah, he felt guilt also, and miserly, and felt guilt at the same time. He felt indignant because he didn't want to part with his darling wealth. And so that is it for party 16 and 17. It's very interesting material, really very interesting.